Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Rabbit. I'm the chairman of the Technical Review Committee. I'd like to call the special meeting of the TRC scheduled for February 19th, 2025 at 9 a.m. to order. Present, we have Mark Comboy, Rich Bourbonnais, Susan Axelrod, and again, Jamie Rabbit. There are 4 members of the TRC present. That constitutes a quorum. Agenda item B is approval of minutes. We have none this morning. Item C is TRC review. Item number 1, preliminary plan, minor land development, proposed construction of a new emergency medical service EMS facility, plus or minus 4,000 square foot building to accommodate 2 rescue vehicles and staff with associated site improvements, AP 80-1, Lot 18, located at 0 Ministerial Road, Town of South Kingstown, applicant/owner. I will note we also have Brian Wagner and Lynn Smith from the Planning Department present. So, with that being said, I'll just give a brief overview of the submission by the town manager as an application. You have approximately a 1-acre lot located on Ministerial Road. The intent of that parcel is to, again, construct an EMS building. Associated with that building is a 8-space parking lot, on-site septic to the north of the parking lot, and storm drainage on the south side of the site. The site has been subdivided. The remaining southern portion that is not targeted for development was deeded back to the South Kingstown Land Trust for conservation and agricultural purposes. There's an existing corn crib on that property, and they will potentially use that for agricultural purposes as time goes on. If you look at the screen right now, you'll see the building, foundation plantings, again to the top right, which is the northern portion of the site. You'll see the 8 parking spaces, and on the south you'll see a detention basin with pre-treatment and then an outflow. That outflow is only intended to be utilized in storms in excess of 100 years. We do have rights to drain across the land that was deeded back to the South Kingstown Land Trust. So I'll go through the committee members with any comments or insight to development review. So Mark, do you have anything particular on this
None at this time.
Mr. Bourbonnais?
With respect to the engineering and whatnot of the site, I haven't got anything. I think that what's been addressed here through some of our discussions, they brought the sidewalk closer to the building on the, as you're facing the building, I guess the southern side, but the right-hand side of the building. Remember that we talked about that? I think, Jamie, maybe we had that good discussion, but
Yes.
they've done that. The only thing I'm going to ask about, and it's just pedestrian circulation, and, well, there's going to be a couple things, but let me just, when you're driving into the main entrance there, if you want, can you zoom in on that that entrance, the parking lot entrance?
The parking lot?
Yeah,
The
right
northern
there.
part, yep.
Yeah, somewhere over there. That's fine. That one corner that's under that blue box right there,
Okay.
it's square, and the reason why it was square originally was because that sidewalk went straight through and then it would be a ramp at the end.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that should still happen. It's either that or you got to round it over, but rather than have people walk through the grass or walk between cars, I would prefer that we just extend that straight through. It's just good circulation. I think good pedestrian circulation anyways.
Can you just clarify that, Rich?
So,
Where the handicap space is proposed?
No.
Where the ADA space?
no, the other end.
Oh,
Where
I
that-
know what you're saying, yeah.
Where it's squared off?
Yeah.
Normally you do a radius, right? We normally do that, but
Yeah.
but that was left square because I believe that sidewalk was meant to go
Originally,
straight
there was
through.
a sidewalk there.
Yeah. And I'd just like to put that back. I don't know how that changes things, but
Yeah, we,
I brought it up at some of the earlier discussions, and
Yeah.
I'd just like to see that. I think from a circulation standpoint, that would help. Are we discussing the site at this point, or are we only doing the subdivision? We
This
did
is the site. This is
Yeah,
the
okay,
site.
all right, so this is
Subdivision was
appropriate
done.
discussion? This is appropriate
Yeah.
discussion for that?
Yep.
That was the only thing I had. So just a couple things, though. This has already gone to has already gone to RIDOT. It went in front of the,
Scenic
Highway?
Highways, it was approved by Scenic Highways.
it was.
Yes.
Did we attend that, or did you go?
I did attend that meeting.
And how was it? Was any,
Their primary concern was there's a small chestnut tree along the frontage in the right-of-way, and they wanted that, one individual wanted that saved.
okay, where was that?
It's just located south of the entrance. I've said, again, it's in the right-of-way. We're revegetating the frontage. It's for an EMS facility. So we will see as we go through the construction
Yeah,
process.
if it can be saved.
If it can be saved or relocated.
All right. That was the only comment, really? That's the only significant comment?
That was the only primary comment. There were some concerns because I don't think they quite understood the ownership at the intersection with the 45-degree. Everyone drives by it and thinks the lot goes all the way to Old Post Road.
Right, it does not.
And it does not.
Right.
So they were okay with the fact that that's in the right-of-way, so the majority of that vegetation isn't on our land, and we have no plans at this time to clear any
Clear
of
it.
that.
We're only clearing for the septic system, so they shouldn't be concerned with that. That whole
Correct.
corner's going to remain vegetated.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
basically, what's field today stays field.
And I have, I have no other concerns. Now, this doesn't show the actual proposed property line on it. But will it be beyond the emergency overflow?
It is just at the southern terminus to the riprap outlet.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. That's all I have.
So, Susan?
I have a couple of questions. So this plan doesn't include a landscape plan? Has there been some thought to the landscaping around the building?
So by regulation, they do require foundation plantings. And Brian, if you can go back to... the site development plan. There you go. So the town did retain the services of a landscape architect to do a foundation plan. We are still reviewing and modifying that plan than the original. Sure, Julie.
The original sale indicated that only the use of native plants was a condition of the sale, so that would be the foundation planning, the rest is
Yeah.
everything needs to be a native mix. And then, this is a thought, do you know if it was an American chestnut that's planted there?
I'm not sure.
You might want to get an arborist to look at it. If it's an American chestnut, they are all impacted by the blight, and it's,
We were going to ask you to move it.
I'm happy to do that. And
Because you may have a better place for it than we do.
Well, it will not,
Sorry.
by definition, what happens is the root system will continue to live, but the vertical growth will consistently die off.
Right, just for the record, Julia Landstreet, who's the director of the Land Trust, has made a comment regarding the long-term survivability of that chestnut, and that even though it may be a long-term endeavor to save, it just may be an endeavor not worth accomplishing, given the fact of disease and blight through that species. So, again, that would be something that's evaluated. I'm pretty sure it's in the state right-of-way. It is not planned to be saved at this time, but if there's an opportunity to relocate or work around that, we would potentially strive to do that. But again, we are not, as an applicant, The applicant's understanding is that it is not a regulatory requirement by either the state or the town to do so. So again, on the foundation plantings, I would be comfortable if, final foundation plan is reviewed and approved by the administrative officer prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the building. So by regulation, they're required to have foundation plantings. It's just the appropriate mix, trying to honor some of the native species that exist in the area, along with traditional foundation plantings.
And not be traditional foundation.
So,
The original meeting said that it would be native.
You have technical difficulty?
it just has to turn on. Do you have the screen yet, Julia? Okay.
Do you have a good landscape there? No, it's not working.
Not yet.
Is there a good landscape by doing this?
What?
Is there a good landscape by doing this?
This is Julia Landstreet with the South Kingstown Land Trust, and it was clearly articulated in the original deed of sale between the land trust and the town that there would only be native plantings used, and this includes both the grasses used and the foundation planting and any other trees. And luckily, it's a great opportunity for the town to take a leadership position on how to use native plants in a landscape setting.
Thank you,
And-
Julia. So again, as I mentioned, I would be more than comfortable that any motion to make a recommendation to the administrative officer for approval include a requirement that the landscape plan is solidified prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy.
Would I be able to add in that I would like to see Ms. Landstreet given a quick eye on whatever is finally approved?
You can't, as the administrative officer, I can't delegate away authority to a third party. Now, again, we have a good working relationship with the land trust, but I can't have a private sector nonprofit have regulatory authority over an application and approval that's meant for the town.
I don't know that I was suggesting regulatory approval, but as you just pointed out, more eyes on a project always are a benefit. Is she?
You can't make that regulatory. The administrative, any board or commission, you couldn't have a motion that you were required to have the land trust sign off on the landscaping. If we have some legal obligations, those legal obligations will be fulfilled.
So I guess, is there something that we can put into this to make it, not all natives were created equal, and so not seeing a landscape plan and not knowing who's designing the landscape plan, and I absolutely trust, I have faith in you, and I know that you know your plants, but what's the process for getting another set of eyes on the landscape operation besides the landscape architect and
So we
the
have-
administrative officer?
So you have we'll say a somewhat knowledgeable planning director. You also have 2 other staff members within the town who have degrees in landscape architecture, who we use as resources, being Rich Bourbonnais and Luke Murray.
Okay. So if the chestnut tree comes down, is there a plan to replace it, or are there any other trees going in on the property?
There is a discussion about potentially putting some street trees along Ministerial Road. The town is spending in excess of $3 million on a very attractive building, so there's some ongoing discussions of, do you need to soften the view of that building, or does the building stand alone? But there is some discussion on street trees.
This is Julia Landstreet again, and if I'm not mistaken, the power lines run along the east side of the street,
Yeah.
and so my recommendation would not be to put street trees, because they will ultimately have to come down to the power lines.
Okay, thank you.
So there, and again, if you, it's difficult in this rendering the show, but the state right away, if you look at proposed utility pole 198, or existing utility pole, proposed, sorry. Brian, can you just, yeah, it's right there, 198. So you only have about 10 feet of green space before the sidewalk that the town owns. Everything else that's perceived greenscape out there is in the state right-of-way. So we have minimal area that the town owns to provide landscaping. And to Ms. Landstreet's point, you do have those utility lines there. In a normal setting, you'd be able to set those further back onto the property, but the building's there. So again, if we have an opportunity to introduce deciduous trees at some point into the property, we will explore that option. We're also susceptible to extreme winds, given proximity to the shoreline. So again, any very large, mature, deciduous shade tree over some point in time may be susceptible to wind and storm damage. I wouldn't suggest we do a big sugar maple somewhere on the site, so that in September, when a hurricane comes up and we have full leaf canopy, that sugar maple ends up coming down.
Okay, I get that, thank you. So the area around the storm drainage, is that lawn, or is that going to be meadow? So to the area to the south of the building, is that sort of meadow consistent with the land trust land, or will that be groomed lawn?
Yeah, no, the intent there is to have both properties seamlessly blend, but also to have it be able to be maintained. So again, the final complexity of grasses have not been finalized.
Okay, and that'll be done by the administrative officer?
Yes.
Okay, then can I just put in a note that if there's any choices, I would personally prefer to see it look more like meadow than golf course.
Yeah, can I add to that, though? If we can do at the top of the, at the top of the slope, well, the basin's gonna have to be mowed. But at the top of the basin, if those grasses could be left tall, mow once a year type thing, I think that might help that. And we can grass across the top of the Caltex, and that could be left taller, so it would look like an open meadow, I think. And even now, I mean, the grazed land is somewhat tall. It's not mowed, it's not cut down perfectly, so I think it'll look a little shaggy. I think that would be better, and that might help. You think?
I guess for me, I would want to make sure that it wasn't lawn and then meadow. That would look silly.
Yeah,
That
well, the
would-
basin will have to be mowed. That'll have to be kept clean and mowed, just for
yeah.
volume control, and then you don't want it to get overgrown. So, but anything at the top of that slope of the basin, that could be left. We can talk about that.
Planted with some kind of wildflower mix or something else, so it's not just crabgrass.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
You don't want crabgrass in there, which is
No.
what you'll get after you start disturbing that soil.
No, but we can look at different grasses. It'll be a native grass. And we have native mixes that we use on a lot of projects, so we could do that.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had was whether or not since this is a residence, there's any outdoor living space. And I think we did in the original EMS building when we were down on, down the other part of town. Is there a place for a table and a grill or any outdoor space for the folks who live in this building? Or could that be incorporated if it hasn't been
Yeah,
put
well,
in yet?
We'll define living. These people are on call 24, on their shift, they're on call. They're typically either sleeping or working
You know,
on the
I-
night shift.
Also, the way they I mean, I'm in their building now, and what they do is they have a grill. They do grill, and they a couple times a week, they all get together. There's a great camaraderie there, and they all gather. But what they do is outside the bay. They do it on the, outside their ambulance bay is where they convene. And that way, when anybody, because now, remember that you have multiple ambulances coming and they gather, they've got to be able to get up and go. They can't be like out back, like they got to be ready to go. So that's what they do. And it seems to work fine for them. I mean, I don't know if we need an outdoor patio or something, but the way they do it now is they actually convene outside those ambulance bays.
Right now, there is no plan for a patio, and I wouldn't recommend one. This is a satellite facility. This is not a main outpost.
No, I get that, but this is also, you know, I don't know what outside the patio bay is, because it looks like outside the patio bay is either the driveway or the sidewalk. It's not, there's not space to throw a picnic table down out there. And I guess if we don't care, that's okay, but if it's something that would be a benefit to the folks, because I realize they're on call, but that also means there's some idle time, and it would be nice to make sure that their home is accommodating to sitting around and grilling up some burgers on the patio. And I'm not saying they need a formal patio, but is there any space besides the septic area to
There's
put
no
in
space.
anything?
There is no space for that program. It's not programmed
Okay.
for the building. The building has been bid. This building
Okay.
is slated for construction.
Okay.
So the
If
EMS...
it was thoughtfully decided that that was the way this was going to go, then I'm good. But I guess I just wanted it to bring it up while it's a thoughtful thing in my
Yeah.
head.
Chief Stanley was intimately involved in the design and the programming of this building
Mm-hmm.
as the head of the department, and during those discussions, he did not request for outdoor space.
Okay. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. So again, what I'm hearing is potential slight modification to the pedestrian connections or parking lot link, and as a request, not a requirement. And the second is the solidification of the landscape plan prior to the occupancy of the building, beholding to any legal standards we have with the land trust with regards to selection of plant material. So to oversimplify that, again, I would entertain a motion, if everybody's comfortable with it, that the administrative officer review, receive, and approve a landscape plan prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. And again, we'll work with the town on the sidewalks.
So moved.
Thank you, Rich. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Susan. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries 4-0. So, again, thank you everyone for attending. Ms. Landstreet, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to come over and visit us, so much appreciated. Thank you, Susan, for attending an extra meeting.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Take a motion to adjourn at 9:30 a.m. Rich, is that a motion? Seconded by Susan?
Yeah.
All those in favor of adjourning? Signify by saying aye. Aye. No opposition, motion carries. Meeting is adjourned at 9:30 a.m. Thank you.